the recordings every Thursday. That's your warning through Zoom, and that'll happen every week. But we record it. So next week you will have, or tomorrow, excuse me, I will send you a copy of this this presentation, this course, and then you'll also get a copy of any PowerPoint slides we go over, as well as any additional information or internet links or handouts or anything like that. That will all be included in your recap emails. So those will go out on Thursdays. The email that you used tonight to log in, the email that had the Zoom link and the phone number, also had a PDF attached to it. That PDF is our course activity book. Admittedly, it is a large book. You do not have to print it, but I highly encourage, if you have the ability to print it, I would. It does follow along with a curriculum each week, and it has all of our worksheets that we're going to talk about. So it has your one-page business plan, reading recommendations, sales funnels, all of that good stuff. It is yours, free to print, write on, do whatever you need to, but it will definitely help kind of organize the different segments of the course as we move along. You'll also notice, if you print that book or if you look at it, that we do have weekly homework. The homework is done on the honor system. Please do not turn it in. It is solely for you to do to help progress on your business idea, kind of whatever phase you're in. It's designed to help you. Like I said, it's still on the honor system, but occasionally we'll say, hey, did you work on your elevator pitch last night? Let's talk about it. We'll take volunteers. And then going back, and I think I skipped this part, but we do require everyone to attend at least 6 out of the 8 weeks for the course. That said, life happens, work schedules change, kids get sick, things happen, you get sick. So if you come up to me and you're like, hey, Allie, I'm going to miss some classes, or my work schedule changed, we want you to graduate as much as you want to graduate. So if that means you can't attend live, but I send you recordings and we stay in contact, we'll make sure that you graduate. But I need you to communicate that to me. If you just stop coming to class and you don't respond to my emails, I can't find you, I'm just going to assume that you dropped. So stay in contact with me. I will make sure that you stay in the class, you get all the information you need. I just need to know, I don't need to know the specifics. I just need to know that we are in communication and you are still interested in the course itself. Now, I tried to go really quickly through that. I know I just spit a lot of information at you. So if you have any questions or want me to clarify anything, I absolutely will. But I do want to leave time to introduce our instructors for this evening. Throughout the 8 weeks, we do have a kind of a rotating staff, if you will, of instructors who will be teaching the course. They all specialize in different things. They've all started different businesses. They all have different life stories. Tonight, we're very honored to be being led by Nadav and Brandon. They both have incredible stories, both kind of life experiences and entrepreneurial journeys. I cannot do their story as much justice as they can do their own stories. So Brandon and Josh, I'm going to make you both, or Brandon and Nadav, I'm so sorry. I'm going to make you both co-hosts, and then please feel free to come on, introduce yourselves, and then whenever you are ready for the PowerPoints, let me know and I will pull them up for you.
Nadav, I was going to suggest that maybe you should start. Can you hear me, Allie? Am I coming through?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great, Brandon, because I was going to say the same thing, but I will accept your volley and accept the challenge of going first. So
all right,
we'll save the best for last in that case. And Allie, thank you so much for your warm introduction. You guys might hear in my voice, I'm kind of fighting something too. It hasn't stopped me from life, as you guys all, I'm sure, are aware. This is how it goes, that we power through. But I'm so excited to be here with everybody. Spending time with I2E folks is such a highlight of my life, and I really love to be able to share some of my stories, the things I've gone through, all this information. This is such a wonderful course, and I'm really looking forward to the many classes, hopefully, of these 8 weeks. I think I'm on the calendar for 5 of them that I'll be together with this group, so I'm very excited for what's coming. And I've had the opportunity and the blessing to be able to teach many of these courses over the past now couple of years. And it's so fun to be able to do it. Allie is a champ. Everybody that is an instructor for you guys in these courses is a volunteer. So we are taking our time out to try to share some love with you guys, try to share some stories with you guys, share some inspiration. And that's why I'm here, and that's the goal of what we're going to be doing. So if you have questions as we are doing this, if, like Ali said, we're doing this for you. So if there's things you want to talk about, the instructors that you are going to interact with are all ears to have this conversation with you guys, either during class time or after class time, offline. You can email us, you can be in touch with us, and that's really what we're here for. So again, my name is Nadav Meir. I'll give you guys a little background of my story and how I got to where I'm at and why I'm qualified to be in front of you as an entrepreneur spokesperson and to teach you something. So my journey is really a long journey in entrepreneurship. I had 15 years where I was self-employed, running my own businesses. I had a lot of years in IT, selling battery backup systems, but then we got into specialty coffee. And I say we, because it was really my wife and I as owners of businesses. We were in Gainesville, Florida, downtown Phoenix, Arizona, and then Ames, Iowa for many years. And we sold a couple different businesses, coffee roasteries, specialty coffee shops in that space. The last one, just over a year ago, we sold our business to our employees, and it became the first workers cooperative in Iowa, which was so exciting and really a big win for me in all sorts of ways. And why we did that is because I had an opportunity to do this midlife career change and become a lecturer, a kind of professor and instructor at Texas A&M University, teaching management and marketing, entrepreneurship. So I'm coming to you live from College Station, Texas, on the Texas A&M campus, where I get to teach these same types of concepts, all this same business startup, marketing, entrepreneurship stuff to very privileged young undergraduate folks, right? And it's the same content, the same ideas that I get to talk to you guys about in this course. So it's really fun for me to have those worlds come together. And you guys in general have a very different life experience than the 19-year-old from Texas, right? So I think that you have a lot that you can bring to the table that can make you guys real winners in entrepreneurship in all sorts of ways. So I'm excited to bring some of that to you guys in that way. So with that introduction, let me pass the baton over here to Brandon, who is hopefully going to outshine me big time with his accomplishments, because I'm extremely proud of what he's been able to do, and I want to hear all about it.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to try though. How about that? So thanks, Nadav. And I'm leaning close to my laptop here, everybody, because I think my mic is not all that great. So I'm doing my best. If you can't hear me at any point, just drop it in the chat that, I look like an idiot and I'm talking to nobody. So look, guys, I'm super excited to be here as well. So I am an entrepreneur. I come from a bit of a different background than Nadav. So I come from a super entrepreneurial family. So I grew up with really interesting role models around me, people that I could learn from. And these were folks who had restaurants, people who had construction companies, generally I'll call it blue collar type work. And I always dreamed of growing up and building companies. And so I went off to college. I got a great education. And then I went off and did we'll call it the Wall Street track. I did mergers and acquisitions advisory work for a little while for biotech companies and pharmaceutical companies. I then went into private equity, which is basically a group that has a whole bunch of capital and they go out and they buy up other companies, grow them and sell them. And so I've worked on companies that are pre-revenue technology businesses all the way up to companies doing $25 million a year in cash flow worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I've also had my own entrepreneurial pursuits. Some have gone very well, others have not. And I'll share a quick story with you. I left in my mid-20s to go pursue a career. I should say I was recruited to step in as the CFO and raise some capital for a healthcare company. These two gentlemen that recruited me were, experienced executives, real guys with real experience. And I was 26 years old and they invited me to be a partner in their business. And so I went out, raised a bunch of money using my network, and we built this company up really, really big. A few years later, about 2.5, 3 years later, that company was acquired for just under $67 million. And so I was 29 years old when that happened. But then shortly thereafter, my entire life fell apart. And this is where I2E really kind of rings true with me and has a deep place in my heart. I found out that the gentleman that I was working with had an illegal kickback operation going on behind the scenes at this healthcare company. And there were some other indiscretions that were happening as well. And basically the government came after anyone and everyone involved, myself included. I was the CFO, and the government positioned me as basically the person who should have known everything, because as the CFO, that's kind of your job. And in hindsight, they're right? I don't want to skirt any accountability. I believe we all have to be highly accountable for our lives and the scenario that we find ourselves in. And I ended up in prison. And so I know some of you guys are here from prison. I know everybody here has been through it. And so I want you to know that I have been through that as well. And I have had to rebuild my life from somebody who I was never in any trouble, I barely had a parking ticket. And I went from that to, from the highest of entrepreneurial highs at a very young age to finding myself locked in a prison cell during COVID-19, And so I'm sure a lot of you guys that resonates with you. But for me, this was a very traumatic experience. And I've had to rebuild my life. And I know many of you are doing the exact same thing. And so I'm here to try to share any information and knowledge that I have. While I was in prison, I taught entrepreneurship classes. I taught financial literacy. I fell in love with teaching, and I fell in love with giving back. And so that is why I do this. And I believe that every single one of you, if you take the right approach and you keep a strong mindset and play the long-term game, you can build a really amazing life. And I think that entrepreneurship is really the way to do that. And so I am excited to be here, and I am honored to be here to be able to speak to you guys. And if you guys have questions or you want to speak to me, I'd be more than happy to help you in any way that I can. So I'm really excited to be a part of it, and let's get going.
This is great. Amazing, Brandon. So I think, Ali, do you want us to start off kind of talking about elevator pitches? I feel like this is a day one thing to start there, right?
Yeah, I think if we could explain generally what an elevator pitch is. I don't know if we need to take volunteers tonight since we're first learning, but maybe if Nadav and Brandon, if you want to give us kind of your elevator pitch after explaining it, that would be helpful.
Cool. So a big part of this course is to get you guys to be confident in saying, I am a business owner. This is me right now. I'm stepping up and I have a business. Just that step, it sounds simple to say it. It's a huge jump to go from an individual that works for someone to see yourself as a business owner and put yourself out there in that way is why we talk about an elevator pitch. So it's really, if you're going to ride in an elevator with someone else for 30 seconds, what are you going to tell them about yourself? What are you going to say about your business? So we're going to be working on this. We're going to be calling on you guys next Wednesday. Be ready, start crafting it and thinking about how you can drop this pitch. And we want to keep it, there's the business saying, keep it simple, stupid, KISS. We want to keep it really simple, right? So our goal is to say, who are we, where we're at, if it's a local service especially, and maybe where you can find more info, and then one kind of crazy nugget that people are going to remember about you. Something special to be like, I remember that guy. He was doing something crazy, silly. So one example I like to say, this is fictional, but I like this kind of elevator pitch of, hey, I'm Nadav Mayer. I have Nadav's cleaning service. We're serving the whole Oklahoma City metro area. You can't miss us. We're the ones with the crazy tie-dye vans. Period. Done. Right? And maybe you could say commercial cleaning, residential cleaning, right? A little bit more, but you want something with that level of tightness. Keep it succinct. Brandon, what do you got to add for me on that?
Well, I like it. I think yours are more exciting than me. I come from this investor institutional world where everything is so dry and boring. So I'll give you my elevator pitch that I use. So I'm Brandon Coluccio. I'm the managing director of Relentless Ventures. We're a boutique advisory firm that helps businesses generating between $500,000 and $5 million per year in profit grow and exit. Okay, so that says very quickly, very succinctly. It's not nearly as interesting. We don't have any cool tie-dyed vans, but we do have a guy who went to prison. So I guess I could say that at the end. But I try to keep it very simple, very short, very sweet, speak exactly about what I do and who I help, and just keep it laser focused. And then a lot of the time you'll end up getting, oh, well, okay, well, tell me more about that, right? And that's really what you're trying to incite is further conversation.
100%, Brandon. This is great. So what do you think, Brandon? I think we're ready for the slides. You ready to jump into this?
I'm ready for the slides. Let's do it.
All right. Ali, if we could please have the slides. All right. Do you want to take this first one, Brandon, or you want me to start us off? We can trade off slides.
Yeah, why don't you kick us off? I'm gonna grab a drink of water and then I'll jump into the next one.
All right, sounds great. All right, so you've met your instructors, at least for today. So like I said, I'll be in about 5 of these for these 8 weeks. The other guy that was supposed to be with us today, Josh, you will see him on some other ones. And you know, the instructors in general are amazing folks, and it's really fun to interact with these folks. So I love it. We're going to talk more about the class. We're going to get you guys talking here as we get into this. What is our goal for you to learn, right? What are you going to take away from this? Hopefully you will get a basic overview, a digestible overview of what it takes to open a business. You know, how we can go from 0 to just having an idea, or even helping you figure out what that idea might be, to actually being able to put your shingle out, as we say it, actually start the business, start finding your first customers. That's kind of our goal here, is based in real life, and thinking small. Thinking about how to start small is a big focus for a lot of folks. It can be overwhelming how to start. Every business that I have opened has been started for less than $1,000. And my businesses were very big, many employees, commercial locations. We can start small, people. And I think that's a big takeaway for you guys, is it's very possible to start small. And you can replace money with hustle. You replace money with gumption. You replace money with your time, and you can really build an amazing business. So we really try to keep it focused on what are these businesses that you can start for less than $1,000? You know, what types of businesses are we talking about? You know, and I think if you have never started a business, you want to start one that's going to be successful from the first day. I don't want you to have to start a business like Brandon's business, right? Right, Brandon? Like that's not a first business for someone to try to interact with these very high level white collar stakeholders and, you know, in a risky way to them. We need an easy layup business. Everybody that hasn't started a business should think about a cleaning business, painting, right? Home services for elderly folks. We're going to get into this list of what types of businesses are you more likely to win at for your first business. And that's kind of one of our goals, because a lot of entrepreneurs start many businesses. So we want to have that first one be awesome so that you can move on to own commercial real estate or other real estate, or right, work with investors like Brandon does. There's kind of layers here in that way. So we're going to get into marketing. So marketing is really how you frame your business, how you tell the story of your business to connect with your customers. And how do you set up everything about your business so that it works and your customers can find you and you make money? How do we build it out? So we're going to talk about that process. The first sale is so hard. You know, this is such a jump for folks when, you know, they're like, I'm ready. I'm going to start cleaning houses. I got my mop. You know, I'm ready for cleaning customers. In my opinion, I think that's one where it's fairly easy to find customers. And for cleaning businesses, there's this magic where they want you every 2 weeks. They want you every week. It's not like you're selling someone a cell phone, right? You buy a cell phone. It's like, all right, talk to me again in 2 years or 3 years. This is a repeat business. So that's a beautiful factor where if you have a cleaning business, you get to come back all the time if they like you. But getting that first one is really a jump. How do we find that first customer? And we're going to have a whole segment on customer service. You know, I often come down on the fact of every customer you interact with, every possible customer, can tell a story about how awesome you are. And if you treat people with love, if you're memorable, you know, if you can connect with people, you know, they might say, I don't need a cleaning service right now, but my Aunt Mary, her cleaner just moved away. She wants somebody new, and you were so nice, right? You want people to say that about you. So getting that vibe of having good service, connecting with helping your marketing is really big for a lot of businesses. And then there's a whole financial, structural, you know, controlling cost, the money part we're going to talk about too. And the money part will trip up a lot of folks if they kind of get complicated with it. This is one of the areas where a lot of first-time business people, first-time entrepreneurs are really scared of the money part. If they haven't worked that through for themselves, figuring out how to keep your costs low, sell for a lot more money, right? It's like there's this hustle element to it in a simple way where it's buy low, sell high, make money in between, keep it simple, you know, and then we're going to try to keep that focus on it, but also get into a lot of nitty gritty about legal stuff, you know, all these elements of what it takes to actually win in the financial sense too. So Brandon, what do you have to add or expand on for this slide, please?
I have just one comment to add here before we jump into the next one. And this is something that so many entrepreneurs, and I interact with people who are like, I'll say relatively high level with established businesses. You would be blown away how many people do not realize or truly appreciate the fact that by building a business, you are creating an asset. And that asset can then be sold at some point down the line. Now, I'm not trying to jump right to the conclusion here, because there's a tremendous amount of work that you have to do, and it takes decades in many cases, right? It takes a long time, at minimum years, to get to that point. But I interact with lots of business owners all the time who have multi-million-dollar companies who really don't fully appreciate that business. And I know people who have just shut down their companies because they don't understand how to sell it and why anybody would be interested in buying it. And so as you go through this course, I want you to always keep that in mind, that as you're building your company, so beyond this course, when you actually get out there and you start, you're building an asset that is worth something. It's not just the cash flow you generate every year. It's worth, in some cases, a significant amount of money. And so just keep that in mind as you continue to move through the course. And when you eventually move into building your business, don't forget that point, because it's very, very important.
Well said.
Yeah. All right, so we did already go through the elevator pitch, so I think we can we'll go through this relatively quickly, but it's everything that I mentioned before. It is a simple, persuasive, short speech that you give that tells who you are, what you do, who you serve, perhaps an interesting thing about you or your market. And in some cases, I think people like to add, how somebody can get in touch with you. So, for example, my name is Brandon. I'm the CEO of Brandon's Landscaping Service. We specialize in lawn care and trimming shrubbery, right? I serve the greater West Palm Beach area, and you can contact me on my website at brandonslandscaping.com, right? Short, sweet, to the point. I just made that up. It's not a real business, of course, but tries to tell what we do, who we serve, and how somebody can contact us. Very, very simple.
Why is this important, Brandon? From your point of view, what do you get when you master elevator pitches?
So one, there's a certain level of confidence that just comes through, right? So when you're communicating what you do to someone, there is this, it's almost an intangible, right? It's there. You can sense it when somebody knows what they do, and it comes through strong, right? So the one that I made up probably didn't come through all that strong, because I was literally making it up. But when you go through this 100 times and you know exactly what you do, who you serve, what market you're targeting, etc., it's going to come through. And also because you want to begin to be opportunistic. So if you're in a conversation at a barbecue, or you're in an elevator with someone and they ask you, oh, what do you do? You have the ability to rattle that off. Like, it should just be second nature, right? It should be very, very quick and very easy.
Great. And I think for students in this class, as you guys go through this, you're going to want to pick a business that you're going to imagine that you're going to start. Even if you're sitting in this class right now saying, I don't know what business I want to start. I don't even know if I want to open a business. Okay. But for the next 8 weeks, imagine that you are opening a landscaping business in Oklahoma City, right? Or whatever it is, because that's going to help you to get through all these steps that we got. And as you imagine that Oklahoma City business, write a script for your elevator pitch. So for all you guys, this is going to be this next assignment. The next time we get together in a week, I'll say, all right, who are we calling on to give elevator pitches? And we'll give you guys the little critique, but write out a script and keep it short and keep it sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there we go. All right. Do you want to take this one? Because yours was kind of short, but you made something of it. You had something to say, Brandon.
Yeah. So the reason that I think Nadav was hitting a point about starting a simple business is because it's very challenging. And I think that adding complexity when you're first starting is just going to increase your barriers, right? So you're going to artificially have all these barriers that you're automatically going to have to overcome. And so finding a business that has a lower barrier to entry is really, I think, where you want to start. And these can be any number of things, but I go to like some of the blue collar things, you know, and they're all listed here, right? You know, a cleaning company was one that, you know, Dov mentioned earlier, but for example, you might get more specific. And I encourage everybody here to think as specific as possible, because if you just say, I do cleaning, well, that's might not resonate with someone when you do give them your elevator pitch versus I clean windows of commercial buildings. Okay. I'm making stuff up here, or I clean residential roofs or whatever, right? Like try to be as specific as possible when you identify the business opportunity that you want to focus on. And so that's really what I'm talking about here when we're focusing on Main Street businesses, right? These kind of blue collar service-based businesses. And of course you have the, you know, higher level of sophistication that comes with a technology company, software, IT, you know, AI, all this kind of wild stuff you're seeing out there. All of that tends to have higher barriers to entry because most of the time these businesses are what's called capital intensive. And that just basically means that they require lots of capital up front. And, you know, when we're all starting from a difficult position in our lives, as many of us have, we don't always have a lot of resources, right? And that's why we want to tend to focus our time and our energy towards something that would fall under what we'll call the Main Street business category.
Great, Brandon. So let me expand on that barriers to entry idea. So I really like for the smallest businesses, these barriers to entry sometimes can be structural with money, like what Brandon was saying, that it's just hard to get into a business that requires a lot of money to start it. But there's other businesses where there's actually state licenses, local permits, all these layers that make starting this type of business hard. So in this case, like I think the lemonade stand or catering, depending on where you live, you might have a whole list of permits, all these hoops to jump through. You might need a commercial kitchen. You might need a food safety certification. You might need insurance, right? It's like, as opposed to like to clean somebody's yard, you need nothing, right? It's like you just need to register with the city. So of course, us as entrepreneurs, we really think about that of how easy can you start, you know? What are these barriers to entry that stop you from doing it? Yeah, and the food ones can be pretty intense in that barrier to entry kind of way. And I would encourage you guys to think about what else we can add to this list. You know, what are some other easy businesses to start that are great? And I love, Brandon, your specificity. There's another instructor, Emily, that occasionally instructs with us. And her thing that she always yells is the riches are in the niches. The more of a niche you can get to with your company, the more money there is waiting for you there, because doing something special that nobody else is doing makes you special. And in business school, we call that differentiation, being different and therefore irreplaceable to your customers. Door installation that Vincent just thrown, amazing. Door doctor is a job, right? And believe me, if you were in my town, you would come and fix my doors, interior and exterior. Any house needs a door doctor. You know, these are great businesses that, again, probably no licenses or permits to get that going. And I think there's a lot of potential businesses that are in that category too. And when you were saying cleaning, right away I said, you know, crime scene cleaning, right? Yeah. It's like very specific types of cleaning, and that can be great. But doing the jobs that people don't want to do, finding jobs that people are willing to pay somebody else to do, I feel like in our economy, in our world right now, there's kind of unlimited potential to start those kinds of businesses, wherever those opportunities lie. And I think the high-tech businesses are listed here really as businesses to be wary of for your first business. You know, unless you can do this for under $1,000 in your garage, maybe not, you know, because we would rather you spend that effort to make money, create a job for yourself with hustle. I think we're ready for the next slide, please, Allie. All right, so what is an entrepreneur? What are the traits? How does an entrepreneur seem? What are the things that they do that are winning, and what are their winning behaviors that you might want to emulate? So this idea of passion is big. Are you passionate about cleaning windows? Maybe not. You know, I like to counsel folks that I work with. You might not be passionate for cat food, but if there's a lot of money to be made selling cat food, can you muster some passion Can you figure out how passionate you can be about some of these things? But having some passion out of the gate is very helpful. And I'll tell you, I was in the coffee business for 10 years. There is no more passionate industry, and the coffee people are crazy. And in the coffee world, I was very old, fairly like conservative vibes compared to the very loose punk rock themed specialty coffee world, which was great. But the folks in that world are passionate. They will do stuff that makes no financial sense, no operational sense, just to get a slightly better coffee output. So there's some industries where the passion is really part of it. But if not, if you see an ability to make money, can you muster the passion? Can you figure out the hustle? This know a little about a lot thing is so on the head. So you got to be able to wear these different hats, right? Imagine me right now on my head, literally putting on different hats. Sometimes I have to be an accountant. Sometimes I have to go sell to customers. Sometimes I have to go clean something. Sometimes I have to deal with government regulation. So you got to be able to switch between all these different roles. And in your life and work before, it might have been pretty straight ahead that I'm doing one thing and I don't have to think about all this other stuff. So that kind of feeds into that knows a little about a lot, that you got to be able to do different things. The proactive, in my mind, that's really motivated. So entrepreneurs, they go get it, right? They're going to close the sale. They are motivated to get up in the morning and do stuff. If you want a business where you can lounge around the house and money comes at you easily, there's not a lot of those out there, and if you're going to build that and you want that life, you might spend a lot of years building a business that does that for you, if that's your life and that's what's important. But there's a lot of work in between. So when we talk about entrepreneurship, and I see Brandon nodding his head here, this is for the people with gumption. This is for the people with hustle that can go get it. So the folks who win, who outcompete their competitors, are the ones who are going to get it, the ones who are motivated. And that kind of leads into that strong desire to succeed. They are out there trying to sell, getting work done, taking care of their customers, keeping everybody happy, taking risks, being able to put yourself out there in some way. This might be the social risk of being the first one next week to raise your hand and give your elevator pitch, that kind of bravery, right? Or taking a financial risk of taking that $1,000 that, man, that's a lot of money, right? That you're going to take that and go buy signs for your truck and get a truck payment to go clean something and buy cleaning equipment. And that's a risk, right? If you can't make that happen, you could lose that money. So being able to take risks to turn that money into more money and take your time and turn it into more money is the risk-taking behavior. This determined and persistent, right? Having people tell you, you did a bad job. I don't like you, right? Or I'm not going to hire you again, or I'm not going to hire you at all. Having doors slammed in your face. Can you take that and then go to the next house and smile and go meet those folks and, be able to put aside that negative vibe, put aside those bad feelings and keep the positive flow going, like absorb all the beautiful good stuff and let all the negative stuff roll off your back like a shower. So some of that, it goes into that determination and persistence that you don't let anything negative outside get at you. And there's a lot of great books about entrepreneurship. That Dale Carnegie one is a classic. Brandon might have some other ones to think about too. But it's really about being curious about this world. What's the one you want to mention?
All right. So it's another Napoleon. Napoleon Hill gets all this credit for Think and Grow Rich, but maybe some of you guys have read this one, but it's called Outwitting the Devil. And it's by Napoleon Hill. It's much less popular, but it's way, way better. And he has in the book out, and maybe if you guys have read it or heard of it, maybe kind of drop a comment in the chat and let me know if you like it. But he has this concept called the drifter. And basically the drifter is like the opposite of everything that Nadav just described, right? The drifter never does anything that requires any effort. The drifter kind of is easily defeated, right? And I think for anybody who is going through a difficult situation, they can relate to this book. And I read that book while I was away, probably like 3 or 4 times. So again, Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil. It's one of my favorites.
Amazing. I haven't read that one. That sounds really fun.
A lot of people haven't heard of it. It's a good one.
It's super cool. Nice, Brandon. So I'll finish up these last points and I'll invite you to make some more comments here. This adaptive part, this really leads in my mind to this idea of the pivot, right? That things could be going really good and all of a sudden the world changes and you got to change what you're doing. So I had this in my life. I had a successful business selling battery backup systems for IT. So all these folks that had servers in their businesses, I was in the business of selling them battery backup systems. Well, guess what? The cloud happened, right? Huge change in the IT world, totally decimated that business. And that really pushed me out of that business. So I had to pivot. I had to be adaptive, and I put all my eggs more in the coffee work that I was already doing. But it's being able to change to suit your market. Figure out what your customers want. And if your customers are always telling you, hey, I know you're coming here to clean the windows, but I'd really love it if you would also clean the doorknobs. All of a sudden, you end up changing the whole business to doorknob cleaning business, right? It's having that adaptability, being able to change. That hard work goes back to the determined and persistent in my mind. What does it take to be motivated and just crush it? And you are your own worst boss in that way, right? Nobody else can tell you, hey, get out there, clean that doorknob. You're going to want to do it for yourself. And then being a strong leader, part of this is leading yourself in some of those same ways we talked about. How can you be the best version of yourself before you can do that for anybody else, right? If you have employees in the future, and I see the question here, APC. So I did work for APC and I sold APC equipment. That was the brand that I worked on for many, many years, selling that stuff. Yeah, that's great. All right, Brandon, jump in here. What do you got to add?
I mean, I don't know that I have a lot to add from this slide. I mean, I think I kind of said my piece. I mean, this is, and we're going to continue this on the next slide, but the road of entrepreneurship is not the easy road, but it is the best road if you can overcome all of the challenges that lay before you, for a number of reasons that we will get to in like one or two slides. So I don't want to jump ahead. So why don't you finish this off, Nadav?
All right, so I'm good with this one. I think we can, Allie, if we can please jump to the next slide. I'll let you take the rest of, take this slide, please, Brandon.
Got it. Okay, yeah, so, well, look, I mean, comfort with challenge and disappointment. My life is a perfect example of that, right? And I think, in entrepreneurship, it's often referred to as the roller coaster ride. And it very much feels like that. One day you could show up and you think you are just the master of the universe. And within the next hour, you're just thinking like, why the heck do I do this every single day, right? That is the nature of entrepreneurship. And I'm not saying that to scare you away from it. I'm saying that to just be real with you, that you will have these incredible moments of triumph and success. And many times they're immediately followed by like total frustration, right? And that's just the way it goes. It's a totally normal thing. The one thing that I wish somebody told me when I first started was to try to be a little bit more measured in my emotional response to both good and bad, right? So we have a tendency to overreact in both directions. And as I gained more experience and I had more of these types of, incidents occur, I learned that I had to kind of take the good with the bad and try to keep more of a neutral frame of mind just day to day. And that's kind of a big point that I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs about today in my actual business. Having financial self-control. So if you land a big client and you've got a huge bank balance, not going to the casino and blowing it all, right? So you are also a steward of capital. You are responsible for paying employees. You are responsible for paying vendors. You will potentially have rent, right? So there's all of these expenses that you have to be able to manage when you're an entrepreneur. So sometimes a lot of first-time entrepreneurs mix up revenue and profit, right? So they think because a customer, gave them a check for 10 grand that, that's the big payday and they can go do what they want. The reality is that there are a lot of expenses that often come with business, and you have to be willing to have that level of self-control. Willingness to learn. I don't even know that it's willing, like it's a requirement. Whether you are willing to do it is irrelevant. You have to learn. And that is both from customers, competitors. I mean, you name it, you have to constantly be absorbing information about your specific industry, about the problems in your industry, and then also trying to adapt and get ahead of those problems, right? Both in your business, with employee issues, et cetera. You have to constantly be working on building those different skill sets. Also, you have to be willing to have people tell you straight up that your business sucks or you didn't do a good job or, whatever, you were late, whatever the issue is, it's going to happen. Absolutely going to happen. And especially if you're dealing with a customer service oriented business, you can do everything in the world to try to make everybody happy, but you're never going to make absolutely everyone happy, right? You're going to have that customer that is going to just be angry and vent their own personal issues on you. You can't avoid it. You just have to let it kind of brush it off. But likewise, from your competitors, from your employees, I mean, there's always a level of criticism. And when you're at the top, when you're the CEO of a company, you have to be willing to take that criticism and filter it. So not just allow it to kind of sink into you emotionally and bring you down, but to take the little nuggets of information that are in there. So some of that customer feedback or criticism might be an opportunity for you to improve your product or service, right? So always look at it again, going back to the previous point, it's an opportunity to learn a little bit. You are often required to communicate, and this is back to the elevator pitch, right? All that really is our way of effectively communicating what we do in our business, but also to communicate with employees, to communicate with in a sales environment. And really, sales is very much a conversation between two people is really all it is, and that comes down to clear, effective communication. And that's something actually that I encourage a lot of first-time entrepreneurs to invest in, is their ability to communicate. And there are some good books and some things you can do to improve that skill. Being creative, so trying to see opportunities where others do not, and also as it relates to problem solving. So as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have challenges and issues in your business, and those, we'll call them problems, you could call them opportunities, but you often have to get a little creative on how you resolve them. And so being open-minded and encouraging feedback from others, I think is very, very important. And then finally, the multitasking thing is tough because it's true, but it's also kind of a bad habit. And I think Nadav did a good job when he was talking about having to switch hats. I look at it as put the finance hat on and just do finance, or put the sales hat on and just do sales. Don't try to do sales and finance and human resources all at the same time, because you won't do any of them effectively. And the way I actually structure my day is that I block out time on my calendar and I'm not allowed to do anything else. So you are doing multiple tasks, but you're not doing them all at the same time. And I think that's an important distinction. Nadav, what do you have, bud?
I don't know. When I had my coffee roastery, I was often doing a million different things at the same time. Roasting coffee, doing accounting, ordering, having random customers come visit all the time. And I was like, all chaos all the time, huge stream.
Yeah.
So it really depends on your style. I think that's another thing with being an entrepreneur, is just the control over your environment. So if you want to build your world in a certain way, right, this is your chance to do it. You don't want to work mornings, you only want to work from noon to 8 every day, nobody's going to tell you can't do that. So there's a little bit of that vibe too, that you build it the way you like it. So you did a great job with the slide, Brandon. It's crazy good. I think that willing to learn, for me, it's really, you have to be curious about your field and also be an expert, right? Like you have to be able to convince your customers that you are an expert in what you're doing. That they're going to trust you, that you deserve their trust. So some of that is keeping up with what's happening in the world with your field, right? So if there's new technologies, new things, you want to be the one to kind of guide them through that, and be that trusted source, that person that they're going to trust in that world. We're going to talk a lot more about the financial stuff, but it was right on that you are in charge of the cookie jar, right? When you get that $10,000 revenue check, you have expenses, like it could be a lot. And it's really tempting for a lot of folks where they're like, wow, I've never had this much money before. And the first time you have that monster amount in the checking account, that's a huge moment. And you're like, I could just leave. I could skip town right now. And, it's a wild feeling. So you are really entrusted with your customers in all sorts of ways, including financially. So super fun. All right, Allie, I think we're ready for the next slide, please. All right, so why do people do this? What are some big reasons that entrepreneurs engage in entrepreneurship? So no limit on income. I would also put in there no limit on losses. So if you have a lot of money and you get sued, you could lose your money. If you are without much money in your life, you have less to lose. Win, right? You can take more risks because you have less. So if you feel like you might be in that category, more reason to go out there and get it. I think for a lot of folks, the more money they have, the less motivated they are to go out and do stuff. So if you are hungry for money and you got hustle and you want to go do stuff, cool, great. Because this is the case where there is no limit on your income. You can make a bunch of money. And as you hang out with more entrepreneurs, learn more about entrepreneurship, you realize that folks are earning money doing one thing, and then they might start a second business doing something else, learn about this other opportunity, because when you're a business person, you got opportunities coming at you all the time. And then you look, maybe you buy some apartment houses, maybe you buy a commercial building. So it tends to roll on in that way. But it's as motivated as you want to be, right? So let's take the cleaning company example. You can just go and make a job for yourself, working the noon to 8 like you want to work. It's built for your life. You've built the job that you want, and your limit is working those 5 days, 8 hours a day. That's it. Awesome. But there's no limit. Nobody's going to tell you, you can't hire 25 more people to go and do that same job and make a bunch of money reselling their labor and have a lot of customers and coordinate it. So it's really how motivated you are. There's no limit on how big you can expand your business. For a lot of folks, right, we want to support our family. We want to be financially independent. That's a big hurdle, and we may not have had that model in our family, right, of folks in our world that we see as able to do that. So that really becoming a better provider is a big thing. Building wealth for yourself kind of goes in that same way, that you want to have a secure future, right? And have wealth. This is something everybody wants, and entrepreneurship gives you a chance to go get it for yourself. I have a history, especially with my family. I also, like Brandon, I grew up all surrounded by folks in business, my parents included. I think people that grow up seeing business, growing up in a house with businesses and relatives who are in business, they have it easier in some ways because they can imagine what it's like. They have a model for that in their history. If you don't have that model, you have a few more hurdles psychologically to get over. So this idea that you can have control over what's going on. Nobody can tell you what time you have to show up to work, right? Your customers might not be happy with you, but it's this idea that you are the last one in line. You have control. For some people, that's the most important thing about entrepreneurship, that they do not handle authority well. They don't want anybody to tell them what to do. This is the job for you, right? To be entrepreneur if you're in that category. Again, passion. Can you muster enough passion, whether you're really excited about this or not? Can you bring passion to your customers and to your work? And the ability to create something, right? And this was, I'm going to piggyback on what Brandon was saying about building value, building an asset. So let's say you see a really nice house in your neighborhood. You're like, I want that house, right? What are your choices? You can go get a mortgage for that house if it's for sale. You can maybe figure out how you can get that house. But if you want to buy an asset, you need to buy it. You need to come with some way to finance it and buy an asset like that. The same is true for a business. When you build a business, you're building a revenue stream. You can value the business just based on that revenue stream, right? So the idea that the business has to own something, once you start having money come in, you have a revenue stream, and that has a value, depending on a bunch of factors. But just imagine, you can't build a house, right, that easily. You can build a revenue stream a lot easier. This ability to create something, to build something beautiful, goes in that direction, also in the community direction. For me, my coffee businesses, my coffee shop in Ames, Iowa, it was a community hub. My job every day was my friends would come and drink coffee with me, and hang out. And it was just a beautiful thing for me personally, but also for all the community around me. And I really built something beautiful embedded in a community. And that helped me, but helped the world too, in this beautiful way. So the ability to build something that matters to you personally, but also that matters to your customers, there's so much potential there to make your corner, right? Your world a little bit better, both for you and your neighbors. And I can't overstate that, right? It's like when people love you and they love what you're doing because it makes their world just that much better, that much more love in there, you're irreplaceable. They're going to love you. They're going to keep throwing money at you. And that goes into that contribute to society. It can be very small. It can be your corner or it can be a bigger thing. But when you are gainfully employed and you've created a job for yourself, right? Think about that from this macro, the big perspective of the whole country. How amazing is that? When you can make a job for yourself, it's so empowering for you, and it's so powerful for the world in general. What do you think, Brendan? What do you got to add?
I don't want to mess that up. That was beautiful. Great.
Thank
Next
you.
slide. All right. So how come you got the fun one? So I get to talk about the not so fun part. So the reality is that businesses fail. They fail all the time. And I have a friend the other day who said something to me along the lines of entrepreneurship is just moving progressively from one failure to the next, right? And never giving up. And that is the reality. And when I say moving from one failure to the next, it's not necessarily always the fact that your business completely failed. It's perhaps that you failed in delivery on a job, or you failed an employee, or whatever. It comes down to the fact that mistakes are going to happen, and that entrepreneurship is an evolution of your business as much as it is an evolution of yourself. So you're constantly having to get better and better. But the reality is that sometimes bad things happen. I've had massive, massive failures in my life, right? That's just the reality of it. But a good entrepreneur, what do? They get right back up and they get at it again. And so there can be moments of overwhelm. That's just the reality of running a business. Like Nadav was saying earlier, he was doing, 1,000 different things at a time. And I have those moments today, every week, right? It happens, and it's just kind of part of it. But you can't allow those moments to destroy your morale. You can't allow those moments to kind of, obliterate the passion that you have for why you're doing what you're doing. Because if they do, if you allow that to seep in, you will begin to doubt yourself. And the moment that you begin to have that doubt is when I've seen people begin to not take the risk that they should, not be willing to invest the time that they need to, maybe not make that sales call that they know they should, because they're beginning to doubt themselves, right? So you always have to be willing to overcome those feelings, because they will come. Another reason businesses fail beyond just kind of the emotional and mental side of it is, people have a total inability to manage money. And this is, earlier when I was saying you are a steward of capital, it's very, very true. It requires a lot of responsibility. And cash flow is the lifeblood. It's the oxygen of every company. And notice I didn't say revenue, I said cash flow, right? So what is left over after everybody has been paid. And the primary reason I would argue that businesses fail is because of either poor cash flow management, or they're underfunded and they have a lack of capital. And I would argue they have a lack of capital because they can't manage cash flow, or they don't know how to price their services high enough. They don't know how to manage their expenses, right? So there's usually another issue why a business is suffering financially. And you have to begin to diagnose that problem, but it almost always comes back to cash flow. But then there are other ones that are more, I'll call it market driven, right? So that would be, a product that just doesn't fly, in a market that doesn't fly. Perhaps there's a significant shift. So, many years ago, lots of manufacturing work went overseas, right? So a lot of those businesses went under. Or, Nadav, your example was, the cloud. Right. So all of that suddenly changed. And sometimes those things happen and they're completely out of our control. And that's just the nature of business. You're going to have wins and you're going to have losses. But anyway, Nadav, I don't know if you have anything to add, but that's what I had for that slide.
Oh, you made it so positive. Come on. You did a great job, Brandon.
There's always beauty in failure somewhere. You just got to look for it.
It's fun. You did a great job here. Yeah, I would second the feeling of the psychology, the getting in your head part and feeling overwhelmed. A lot of entrepreneurs, they can go at a different speed, right? They kind of develop this ability, like, I know I get accused of this now that I'm working in this big institution as opposed to for myself. A lot of folks say you work at a different speed, and that's just kind of normal for a lot of entrepreneurs. And so you got to be able to turn it on sometimes in that way. Totally agree with you about the cash flow. The analogy I use for cash flow, it's like your personal budget. So when you have a business, it's just like your household checking account, right? Money comes in, money goes out. So your revenue comes in, and then you got to pay employees, you got to pay the truck payment, you got to pay rent. Very similar in vibe. So except for with a business, also you can't go in the red. And if you have employees, other people are depending on you. So, and if it goes out of business, if you go in the red, it's like you're done. That's bankruptcy. So the stakes are high in that way. And yeah, the pivot discussion is very, very solid too. So great job, Brandon. I think we're ready for the next slide, please. Ali, super. All right. More reasons why businesses fail. So again, the number one reason is the cash flow by far and away. When we talk about in this class, that's the one that gets people first up. These other ones are big too, but just know the financial, often when a business is rolling, it's that money mismanagement trips up a lot more people than some of these issues. Bad employees definitely can be a big morale drain, maybe financial drain if they're financially irresponsible, if they have access to that. Bad employees can be bad, but what's nice about that problem is usually it's temporary. You can fire a bad employee, get another employee that works out better, but you kind of have to at least know that the employee isn't working out to take action. Having a bad partner is a very big problem. We talk about in this class, I counsel folks all the time, if you can do it without a partner, go alone, that's the way to go. If you can hire somebody as an employee to do something, if you have a family member that they're like, I want to get involved in your business, I want to go halvesies with you, I want to get in on this, you know, your first thought should be maybe not halvesies, but maybe I'll pay you and I'll be the boss, right? Really comes back to, is there one person that can make a call? And just think about how much more complicated it is to make a decision with multiple people than it is for you to make it. But partners, a lot of businesses do go under because of partners and ends up with fighting and sometimes lawsuits. It's an unneeded risk if you can avoid it. This work-life balance thing can go either way, right? It can be either I am starting my business and I am too into sleeping in, right? I'm not going to get up and make that sales call. It can go in that direction, or it can go in the direction of I am working nonstop 25 hours a day and I am never stopping. I'm so into this that it eats your whole life, right? Being an entrepreneur, it can go in either direction. And that either one can trip you up, to be honest. I'm sure Brandon and I both know people that would fall into either category, you know, on either of those extremes. But think about it like a spectrum, right? So your goal is to be balanced somewhere in the middle there. Competitors are out there. So, you know, we will talk about competitors. In my view, your competitors are it's the best. When you know your competitors and you know what's going on with them and your market is stable, love those competitors. You know, the ones that are out there. You're worried about the ones you don't know about that want to enter the market. They're going to compete with you. But when you know your competitors and you have stable markets, that's great. But if things change in your market, and this was the other thing Brandon was saying with the pivots and the market's changing, right? My story about the cloud, having a business that's resilient to that is possible. So that's why folks like to get into residential real estate, right? No matter what happens with IT, people need a place to live. This is also why people tend to do the cleaning businesses and other businesses. No matter what's going on, if people have the money, they're going to want cleaners, right? There's no way that that's going to be outsourced to China. So it's thinking about businesses that are really resilient in that way. But the competition thing is out there. This lack of desire gets into that lack of motivation a little bit, that lack of winning and lack of perseverance. And the family and health, you know, there's a lot of roadblocks there, you know, and for a lot of first-time entrepreneurs, this is so normal, right? You're going to go through this course. We're going to load you up with all these ideas, all these ways that you can win psychologically and really inspire you for all these beautiful things you can do in your life. And then you're going to say, all right, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to open this cleaning business. And then you talk to your significant other or your brother or somebody else. And right away, they feel challenged by you. When you say you're going to do something and you're going to step up and do something that is scary or out of what is normal for them, it can be very threatening to those around you when you say you want to be an entrepreneur, because they might feel terrified inside for themselves and for you. So that family part of it is very significant for a lot of first-time entrepreneurs, that they see you a certain way and they're going to give you potentially a lot of pushback negative vibes. And it's hard to shed those negative vibes, let it roll off your back like shower water. Don't let that absorb. Yeah, health issues happen, and that lack of focus on customers. Now, I really would bring it back to know your customers well, be in touch with them. Your customers are your success in business. So as much as we talk about you have control of your business, you can do your own thing, at the end of the day, your customers are kind of your boss in a lot of ways. If you have a boss, it's your customer because you got to keep them happy. Do you agree, Brandon?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, everybody always says, oh, I want to be my own boss, but you've always got a boss, right? It just, it changes. Your boss might be, if you have a business partner or an investor, the CEO has a boss in those instances, right? But, like you said, Nadav, I mean, those customers, the customers are the reason you're doing this. And I want to just kind of highlight an interesting point you mentioned about, kind of and I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, but like I call them the boring businesses. And these are like the fundamental businesses that are absolutely necessary. And I want to reiterate that I know more people personally who are multi tens of millions of dollars in net worth because they have built boring businesses. One guy does HVAC fixing. Another guy has a company that fixes the hydraulics on like machinery. I mean, I know other guys that have very, very large commercial cleaning businesses. These are great businesses. And one of the risks that Nadav was talking about was the fact that sometimes these things markets can shift and things go overseas. Technology becomes a factor. A lot of the businesses that we're encouraging you to look into are these types of sustainable businesses that are probably not going anywhere anytime soon. So you can eliminate, the reason I'm bringing that up is you can eliminate some of these points of failure just by focusing on the right business opportunity. But I think that's really important. But that's all I had to add.
I love it. And yeah, the trades, I would just second that. Anything related to the trades, the masonry, carpentry, plumbing, those guys make tons of money. Great businesses, it's we got a message in the chat here. How about subcontracting work out? Yes. Here's the thing. If you set up a business and you have the customers, right? You are the face of it, whether you're doing plumbing, HVAC, right? They don't really care how the work's getting done. You're the one that's responsible. So if you orchestrate other people to do the work, nobody really cares. And service businesses are growing much faster than product-based businesses in this country. So getting into service businesses is great. And yes, lower startup costs are true. So Brandon, you're going to take the next slide.
Sure. Oh, picking a name. Come on. That's why you gave me this one. So I have no creativity. So if I was starting a business, it would be, like I said, Brandon's Landscaping. But no, my point is I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek, but like it should reflect what you do. It should be very clear about what type of business you have. So you wouldn't call, a tech company, Brandon's Landscaping and Tech, right? Like that's confusing, right? People are like, what does that mean? Keep it simple. Keep it clear. Do not overthink it. Don't pay somebody to come up with a name. I know people who've done that. They wait to start their company until that person that they've paid a couple $100 comes up with this name that they think is going to blow their mind. Do not turn naming your business into a barrier to starting. Just start. Obviously, it should be appropriate, of course. What else am I missing? I mean, I think this is a very easy one. I think we can move quickly here.
I think this is one that you're right that it trips people up, Brandon. And having seen several businesses myself, some better than others. My thing that I like to do, first off, you want to make sure that you own that name, at least in your local area, right? That you're not going to be confused with anybody else locally if it's a local based business. And then if you think maybe you would go national or there's a national thing, make sure you own that name or something similar to that name so you don't have confusion with other businesses. So that's something that's pretty important these days in a social media way to know where you're at with that. And then I like to name stuff for like a 4th grade level, words that an 8-year-old understands. And ideally that it's something they can see. There's a visual part of it. And then also auditory, if it's something that makes a sound, that's kind of fun too. So my business, the last one that we just sold was called Morning Bell coffee roasters. So morning like good morning, bell like ringing a bell, coffee roasters. Very simple. And so I think that it's another place where it's keep it simple, stupid in that way. The simpler you can do it, the better. All right, there are a couple interesting questions here in the chat. So Dennis says he has a welding business, trying to get the ball rolling with it and getting it going, and that's great. Welding can be awesome. I'm excited to hear more about that. Keisha is asking about entertainment businesses and throwing events. There are businesses that do very well in that space. I don't know if I would pick that as my first business right off the top of my head. I think there's a lot of barriers to entry there, and there's no repeat customers, right? My favorite first businesses are always, what can you do where you work with the same customers over and over again and they love you? That's helps you win, right? So entertainment business, you could have a very big job and then, right, the wedding happened and you don't have those folks again. So it's not to say that it's bad. There are lots of those businesses out there. I just don't know if that would be my first one. Yeah, you can look up, like Ali says here, your name, the Secretary of State, but online searches are very good too. You got to Google it and look at the social media. LLCs are local to your state, I believe. Sometimes you can get what's called a fictitious name registration, and also those are only local to your state. It can get a little dicey. I know people that have opened coffee businesses and then got sued by people who just started businesses in another state that use that name, and they filed some legal paperwork and they sued these other guys. They had to change their name. So that kind of nonsense can happen too. So you really kind of have to watch your intellectual property, your IP. It's one of those things with the name that can become important. Oh man, asbestos removal, not huge money in asbestos removal. That's like an amazing business. Amazing business. Those guys, I know from experience, hundreds of dollars per hour. You know, it's like, that's a fabulous business to think about. Yeah, vitamin nutrition drink, maybe, right? What do you think, Brandon? Vitamin nutrition?
Hyper competitive, high barriers to entry. Probably not where I would start. The other thing I want to add is you can do so that you were talking about like trademark infringement. So when you're using somebody else's name, you can do a search, and Ali might be able to drop the website, but it's the USPTO, I think it is, U.S. Patent and Trade Organization. I might have that wrong, but you can do a search for a name and see if somebody else is using that name, and it will even break down what industry, right? So maybe your business is in landscaping and the name is like in the automotive industry. You're probably going to be fine there because it's, not a related business. So anyway, that's just a little additional piece of detail that people can look into when they are naming.
Yeah, but it gets a little legally fraught, right? It's like it gets a little questionable for the name. I'm thinking there's a ranch and farm business. That's super cool to hear about. So we have some folks here in the class that are actually have already started businesses and are doing stuff. Awesome. Yeah, so it's great to see, great to think about. All right, I think we're ready for the next slide, please, Ali. What else we got here?
I was just going to jump in 1 second. So I did want to tell everyone. So we had in a previous class an individual who wanted to start a business, and they tried to name the business after themselves, which is, it's fine. But the problem came when potential clients would Google his business and inevitably a mugshot would pop up. So he was scaring away potential customers on accident. He had no idea that this was happening until he Googled himself and realized what was happening. So think about potential associations the name carries, if it's your name or your initials, like maybe your business pops up on a Google search, but also what else pops up during that naming. Otherwise, I will move on. Sorry to interject, guys.
That's a very good point, Ali. And I think the other part is, like Brandon says, when you build a business, you want to build it to sell. Any business that you build, you're building that revenue stream. Maybe you'll sell it one day. If there's value of not having your name on there. Yeah, Michael Jackson babysitting, maybe not, right? It's tough. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. On the other side, though, and we'll hear about this from Josh when we get him as an instructor one of these weeks, you guys all have special stories, right? And depending on the market that you're selling into, your experience, your judicial involvement, and your story of going from someone that was on the receiving end of some negativity societally to someone who is now a winner in their community, that transformation story can be a huge marketing story for your business. So as much as like you don't want to name it after yourself and see the mugshot, on the flip side, there's actually a huge potential benefit for your business, especially if your consumers are interested in supporting someone that has been through that story. And, the media loves stories. When we talk about public relations, if you can have news stories where, and you can see this from Josh too, he'll share some of these stories with you. He was in Forbes and other newspapers, huge things about his business, where he can talk about going from being in prison to having a t-shirt business where he employs, second chance labor. It's huge. So there's beautiful things that you can do with your experience to take that and use it in a marketing sense. All right. So we talked a little bit about the homework, about this elevator pitch and what we want to do. And again, if you're like, I'm not sure I want to do this entrepreneurship thing, I'm in this class just to try to find out more, you pick something, use this as an example to push through for these next 8 weeks, put yourself through that imaginary journey. And for you guys that are like, no, I think I might want to start a business, this could be good, take this seriously. My time, when I have these students at Texas A&M pay for my time, they each pay $150 an hour to get me in a 200-person room. Right? So Brandon, I'm sure, makes even more with what he's doing. So we're donating our time to you guys to help you think this stuff through. It's like a free mini MBA for you. So we really want to support you guys, and we can help you get from an idea to what it takes to open it at the end of these 8 weeks. And we really want to help you get there.
I did see a question about the activity book. I'm going to throw it in the chat so you can download it, but I will also include it in my recap email tomorrow.
Sounds great. So I think we have a few extra minutes at this point. I'm just looking at the clock. We got about 10 minutes. You want to open it up for questions? Any random stuff? Brandon, you can tell us about your favorite football pick for the Super Bowl.
I'm from Philly. Come on, man.
The Eagles fans go hard.
Come on. It's not even a question. What else we got? You guys can ask us anything you want. Well, I shouldn't say anything, within reason.
This is not being recorded, right? Oh, it is being recorded. Oh, yeah.
I see. How do you secure your business name? So again, I don't know. I don't want to give like legal advice, but you can go to your state's website. So wherever you want to register your business, and they have a website, and this is a Google search away, right? So you want to find, register my LLC. You will then have the ability to search for the name. It will tell you if that name is taken. And then there's a process of going through, filling out the paperwork, and it has all the information you would expect: name, address, name of your business, et cetera, what you're going to do, all that stuff. And you just file that paperwork.
Yeah, and each state has a totally different system. So this is handled by usually the secretaries of state. So it can be kind of random. And having done it in different states, I'll tell you, there's a lot of variation there. But generally, you'll get to a website where you can search the existing LLCs. And remember, not all those LLCs are actually operating using that name. So sometimes they'll have an LLC, but then there's a fictitious name, and it's like Marco's Donuts, but then it's like Trident LLC, right? Owns that business. So there can be a lot of layers of chaos there. But it's a great question. Yeah, we're going to have a whole week about LLCs and structure, and all that stuff is coming for you guys. All right, so someone asked about handyman insurance. So I think their insurance business, to be an insurance agent, an independent insurance agent, can be an awesome business because it has that repeatability cycle. Once your customers are buying from you, they're not likely to change if you do a good enough job. I love the insurance business. I think if that is interesting for you, there's a lot of opportunities for folks to sell insurance. I don't know if specifically for people in the handyman business, but all types of commercial insurance I think can be great. Hoodies can be tough. We're going to have Josh. You'll be able to talk apparel business stuff directly. There's a lot of that happening. It's a huge business. I don't know if I would necessarily pick it for someone's first business. How do you market yourself? We're going to be talking about marketing. There's a whole other day too. We got more Philly people reading through all these chats. What about using the chat AI stuff? Yeah, what do you guys think about AI? What businesses are going to be resilient to AI taking over your business? Is AI going to come clean your house? Is AI going to cut your lawn?
Probably not. but you can use AI and Chat GPT and OpenAI and all this other new cool stuff. If you're, if you're into that, you can go check it out and play with it, and you can do some amazing things. Write me 10 blog articles about the best way to clean your house, and it will like do it. It's amazing. I don't know if anybody's experimented with it. So AI is coming. Find a way to integrate it into your business in a positive way. Would be my advice there.
It's great. I just popped my email in the chat. Brandon, if you want to too. We like to keep it open. It's one of the perks really of being in this kind of class is that we can be here for you guys to have some offline email conversations, try to support you guys a little bit on this journey because, we're doing this for love, straight up. Anybody that's an instructor in I2E is doing it because we feel for you and we want to help you guys do your thing, and figure this out and then show you guys that it's possible and that there's folks out there that want to help you get there. So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I lived in Iowa for years. So the Chiefs were a quasi-local team, although being a Rhode Islander, I'm all Pats all the time, but I will accept the Chiefs, but I have a lot of Philly family too. So there's a lot of Eagles in the house too. I don't know.
Choose your next words carefully, Nadav. I might not want to teach with you anymore.
Yeah, them is fighting words, right? So gotta root for both of them. Yeah, what was the name of the Napoleon Hill book again? The one you mentioned, Brandon.
Yeah, it's called Outwitting the Devil. I think Ali dropped it in the chat at some point. I thought I saw it come through there. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, a lot in the chat, which is great. There was a question about the painting business too and marketing for painting. They were going to have a whole marketing and sales week. So we will get there. We will talk about the marketing parts for sure. Outwitting the Devil.
Such a good book.
What's the deal with virtual addresses? In what way? Can you clarify? I mean, there are services for virtual addresses that are out there. There's a lot of service businesses that don't really have an address. And I'm not sure what you're asking there, but virtual addresses are out there. Not that much mail these days, right? The mail feels pretty old school, like postal service style mail. But some people need.
That's, I think, what they were getting at is it's a way to not have to use your real address because there's all these like things that pop up now. If somebody kind of looks up a business address and they end up, you're using your home address like most people do. And I understand that that could be a security thing as well. So I've used virtual addresses. iPostal One is one of my favorites. It's relatively cheap, but again, it's just one more thing you have to pay for. So don't let something like that stop you from getting started.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways around that, but I've used those virtual address services too. They can be good. It's good to have a legal address somewhere. If you're local and your service is local, it might help to if it's a local-ish address. But it can be kind of dicey, right? If you want to show up on Google Maps, but you don't have a service where you want people coming to your house, those UPS mailbox kind of stores. Sometimes you can rent one of those boxes and say it's suite number, 25,600, whatever, right? At this address, and that works too. But there's a lot of ways around that, and it could be interesting to see what other businesses like yours are doing in other cities to get around some of those issues. That's a great question. Yeah, nobody wants their real address out there. All right. Well, it's so fun. I'm all jazzed up. I'm all pumped. I'm ready for the next few weeks. I hope this is going to be a really fun crew. I can already tell we're going to have a good time these next few weeks and get into a lot of good discussions and talk about a lot of stuff. Do you have any final thoughts to send us away with, Brandon?
No, I don't really have anything, all that insightful. I really enjoyed this. I mean, I just noticed there's like 90 people on this. So I think this is by far my biggest class. So I'm just really excited to be able to have been here and to talk to you guys. And I look forward to teaching more classes with you, Nadav, and seeing everybody again soon.
Thanks, Brandon. You killed it as usual. You're something else. And Ali, you did too. And this is just a party. So yeah, we're very much looking forward to it. So thank you all. I will be seeing you again soon, and I'll pass it back to Ali to close us out here.
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you so much, Brandon and Nadav. We could not host these courses without you. You are our leading experts in these courses, and we so appreciate your time and your volunteering all of your energy towards this class. Excuse me, my voice is going out, guys. I really tried to hold it together. I did see a bunch of questions come through. I am recording this. I will send you a recap tomorrow. It should be in before the afternoon. It'll be a copy of this class. So the recording, a copy of the PowerPoint slides we went over. And then I made a list of the links that we threw in the chat. So the chat box is not recorded. So you do not get a copy of what the chat box says, but I have all of those links written down. I will make sure that all of you get access to those tomorrow as well. Our next class is a week from tonight. So that will be Wednesday, February 15th. We have a packed class. Nadav is back with us. Brandon will be back with us in a few weeks from now. But we're going to be talking about a lot. So partnerships, types of businesses, business plans, marketing, getting your customers. So we're really going to dive in and progress off of what we talked about this evening. We so appreciate all of your participation. It makes the class more exciting. We definitely get to talk on more business specific questions that are relevant to you when you participate and chat and ask questions. So that's always very, very helpful and appreciated. If you have any questions in the meantime between now and next week, please reach out to me. I will do my best to get whatever you need to you. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you next week. We hope you have a great rest of your evening. Thanks, everyone.